She is power. She is love. She is hope. She inspires. She is many journeys in one lifetime. She is the people, an individual, a never-ending story of the beauty of possibility.
I nearly didn't get into medical school, I put it that way. I got rejected from a couple of medical schools.
I was a treasury officer, went through the ranks in treasury.
You find the whole reverend thing geared towards the male.
So I had to learn now how to find my voice. I think the other thing for me would be hard work and continuous self-improvement.
My faith is everything.
Be a part of She Inspires this and every Wednesday on the I Am Drive on Sunny 88.7 FM, 8:30 a.m. and live on Facebook same time. Also join in on Sunny TV every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. She Inspires is proudly brought to you by She Inspires.
Welcome to today's edition of She Inspires, highlighting inspiring women of our times. We got to learn more about their area of expertise. We pick their minds on leadership, women empowerment. We get to learn more about their faith, the things they love to do, their hobbies, and so much more. For my guest on She Inspires today, she defied the odds to set up a business in tech. My guest is Regina Honu, CEO of Soronko Solutions. She Inspires is proudly brought to you by Duffy's Health and Beauty, Hotel Kasareri, Mianan Foods, Debbie Frimpong, Ajili Jewelry, and Royal Peaches. My name is Jennifer Jessica Danquah. Stay with us. So for someone who has a coding school and teaches coding, I'm curious, tell about the first time you ever thought of coding, probably heard about coding, how you got introduced to coding.
So it all started with a game called Pac-Man. I played the game and I thought it was boring.
How was the game like?
So it's just a big yellow ball that eats other small balls, but it goes through a maze. So you have to make sure that you enter the right maze, finish the balls, and there are some obstacles. Like once you hit that obstacle, you're out of the game. But I thought I could do more in terms of color, more interactivity, more engagement. And so then I learned that in order to do that, I had to learn how to code. So this is how it all started.
What was the reaction? Did you tell your parents about this experience, or was a teacher you spoke to? What was their reaction?
So I think first was my friends.
Okay.
And then they were like, no, it's not for girls. It's very difficult.
These were female friends, or
both?
Both sides.
Yes, both sides. So they were all like, and at the time it was like crazy. Like, why do I want to do computer science or do coding? What is that? So when I told my friends, they were like, no, it's very difficult. Technology and those things are for boys. My parents, I think, always knew that I was a special child because I think I had always done out of the box things growing up. So they kind of received it. My dad more so. My mom didn't really understand, what I wanted to do. But it was met with a lot of negative, this is not for girls, this is not going to work, yeah.
How did you handle those negative comments that came along the way? I mean, this was a dream you shared with people and some didn't think it was possible. How did you handle them?
So before that, I had watched the movie where a man was able to fly with a rocket strapped on his back. It was called Rocket Man. And I thought at the time everything on TV was real. I had never traveled, so I said, okay, I'm going to design my own rocket. So I drew a prototype. Yes, it's like children believe.
Wow.
That's the beauty of being a child, right? So
Definitely.
I drew, a prototype for a rocket, showed it to my teacher who said it's impossible. Girls can't build rockets, and I'll end up in the kitchen. So when I heard the second one about girls can't do this, I was like, gosh, I'm tired of this girls can and cannot do this. So at this point in time, I was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't feel like my gender needs to always be defining what I can and cannot do.
And so how did that inform the decisions you made going through school, possibly to the university level?
So now I had to step off, my parents' aspirations that they place on children, at the time, which was doctor. You had the doctor, lawyer, engineer kind of thing. And I decided that I wanted to study computer science. So I studied science in senior secondary school. And then I went into university. I went to Ashesi University. I was in the first class, when it started, and decided to take a major in computer science. But I failed my first class.
Let's talk about that, because one may be amazed and shocked to know that the Regina we know today ever failed a class.
I failed the first one miserably.
Can you take us down memory lane?
So it was, before you start a major, because Ashes is a liberal arts college, you do a little business, a little IT, just general courses. And, I was doing well there. And then in my second year, I majored. My first programming language was called Visual Basic. And in the group of programming languages, that's the easy one. It's more drag and drop and more visual, hence the name. But I just didn't understand. I didn't understand what was happening. It was very difficult. I couldn't get the coding at the beginning. Yeah, it was just, and I remember during our first exam, I was stuck on question 3 and there were people around me just writing away. I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So I actually left the exam hall.
You did?
Because I was going to change my course. I was like, this thing is not working.
You left the paper?
I couldn't pass that paper. I mean, I didn't know the answer. So when I finished and I submitted, knowing very well that this is a failed paper, I decided that let me go to the dean and change my course. Let me go and do business, because I had done some business courses and I seemed to be good at it. I mean, I'm naturally good at math. So I felt that, I would do well in business. And also, all the stuff that people tell you, in a way, it plays on your mind, right? I had heard a lot about this is difficult, it's not for girls, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of, I think it affected me. But on my way to the dean's office, I was like, I can't give up. First hurdle. I made so much noise about how I was going to be a computer scientist. Like the first obstacle, I'm just going to give up. No. So then I went back to try again. And
so you didn't even enter the dean's office?
No, I didn't make it. I just stopped midway. And I remember very well because it was I think one of the turning points in my life. I just stopped midway. I was like, no, Regina, go and try harder. And so that's what I did. So I went back. I was writing code day and night. When they would give us group projects for us to work in a team, I would do it all by myself. So I did it and then I fell in love with it. It became like a second language to me.
Wow.
But it took totally, putting myself into it and making sure that I'm going to do this, and that was
paid off. Would you remember the reaction of your lecturer for someone who had failed and then you rose up?
So it took some time. So it's not even and then it was another one that came when I moved on. So I would say that it was really my third year that I came into my own, because we did calculus, and calculus is really advanced math, and I topped the class in calculus. Wow. So then I was like, okay, Regina, you are making progress. You are in your lane. I know, I'm in my lane. Let me keep going. Yeah.
So you definitely graduated from Ashesi, and congratulations, you pressed hard on that. It's in order. Eventually, you had a career in IT. I mean, IT professional in the banking sector. Then you decided to set up your own company. I want to know, back in Ashesi, was it something you dreamed about? No. At which point did Soronko Solutions come in?
So I was, a typical average girl, which is a little bit risk averse and very shy, So I thought entrepreneurs are crazy people or rich people, right?
How crazy do you think they are?
Yeah, I felt why would you leave the comfort of a secure job to go into, and doing business in Ghana is quite a challenge, right? So I thought, you are born an entrepreneur and not made. So I thought you either have these characteristics that make you stand out, you are some superpower that makes you be able to become an entrepreneur. I was risk averse, shy, so I was like, this is not for me. So I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. Even during Ashesi, we have an entrepreneurship program. I told my lecturer then that I'm just passing through, because some of us, we are meant to be working in corporate. So that's what I told my lecturer. I'm passing through this thing. Right, so so I never ever saw myself as an entrepreneur.
So for how many years did you do banking?
So I worked in a software, I worked in a software company, and then I worked in 2 banks in the IT department. So let's say roughly around from 2005 all the way up to 2012, so 7 years, so 7 to 8 years I was in the corporate world.
So at which point did Regina, who thought, no, entrepreneurs have to be born, they have to be this and that, at which point did you say, I can do this, I want to do this?
So there was never that point. So how it happened is actually an interesting story, because once I had the opportunity to go to Microsoft. Okay. And, this was the first time that Microsoft was trying to recruit from the continent. So I started the process here. I flew to Seattle to take the Microsoft interview, which tests everything about you, your mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, everything. You know, it's a one-day exam.
How did you get introduced to that opportunity?
So they were looking to recruit, and I think they sent out communication to Ashesi, and Ashesi sent it to its students, and then I applied, and then you start the process here. So you take a phone interview, a written test. So it's a whole process before there are even puzzles and riddles. It's like, you know, before you make it
rigorous.
Yes, it was before you make it to Seattle. So when I got to Microsoft campus, which is like a town on its own, I remember I was sitting in the lobby waiting, you know, to be called in for the interview, and there was a table, and it was a touch screen table. This was the first time I'd seen that. You know, I'd never seen that ever in my whole entire life, right? And you can touch the screen and change the screen to an aquarium. You could read the news. I was just blown away, and I was just there thinking.
Did it show in your face that you were blown away?
I'm sure it did, because it was like, I mean, I'd never seen anything like this. And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, it would be amazing to work at Microsoft. I think in every developer's journey, there are some top 3 companies that you would love to work at. But I always wanted to stay in Ghana. So after the Microsoft interview and experience, you know, I wasn't really interested in the position, right? So this was why I was like, okay, you know, I'm not going to pursue that. So when I came back, I wasn't really interested in, you know, working at Microsoft, and decided that now let me focus on, you know, starting something or doing something in Ghana. But this is where I was like, it took me a while, because it wasn't like I came to that realization and then the next morning I was like, I started my business. You know, I was like, you know, going through the, oh no, you can't do this, you're not ready, all of that. So the Microsoft experience really was a turning point for me, because it pushed me more into wanting to start something for myself. You know, when I was in SS thinking about going to university, my mother, who's a typical Ashanti, wanted me to go to university in the US so she can tell everybody her daughter is in the US. But I wanted to stay because I'd heard of this phenomenon called the brain drain. And I was always so concerned, what happens if the best and the brightest leave the country? So who develops it? I love Ghana, good and bad. You know, I'm a typical child of the sun. That's what I call myself. So I love it here. I love everything about Ghana. And so I wanted to stay. And then luckily we saw Ashesi. So now at this other juncture, I thought, okay, if I work at Microsoft, it will be amazing. But how am I going to contribute to Ghana? So when I left that experience, I was more determined to start to be like the change I wanted to see, to like take an action, right? But how was I going to do that? Yeah. I mean, I started to play around with the idea of entrepreneurship, but there's always this voice, and I know a lot of young people hear it, that tells you why you can't do something.
Why you can't.
So when I started to hear, like I started, okay, let me start my own business, to be like, no, Regina, you're shy. You don't have a rich uncle. How are you going to do this, you know? I was just breaking I was breaking myself down in my spirit. So it took me a while. And the day that I resigned, I didn't know when I woke up I was going to resign. It was a regular day.
You resigned at your work, and as of that morning, you did not know you would do that.
I didn't know I was going to resign. You know, it was like I was going through this series of, okay, let me do it, but no. And then, you know, I would stop. So it was a regular day. I went into work, and I think something happened. And I was like, no, I can't keep doing this. Let me resign. So I talked to my friends. And when you work in the bank, you know, they spread allowances. So there's always something at the end of the corner coming. Something. Maybe it's clothing, maybe it's bonus, maybe it's housing. There's always something coming. Something is always hanging around somewhere. So I told my friends, and they were like, you know, bonus is coming. I should just wait and then, you know, take my bonus. And I was like, yes. And, you know, I went to the ladies to pray because this was a big decision, right? And I just had this feeling in my spirit.
All these allowances.
You know, I was like, and, you know, I didn't have a business plan. It's like I didn't know when I woke up I was going to resign that day, right? And, I mean, I don't recommend that.
You had to chip in that.
Yeah, you need a plan. Don't follow that path. You know, so, but I just had this feeling that I must resign today. And so I went in, I prayed, and I was like, look, you know, Jesus has to take the wheel literally, because I'm just about to do this. I typed in my resignation, submitted it to my manager, who asked me like, what am I going to do? Because, you know, sometimes they are concerned, are you going to another bank? What is all happening? I was like, no, I'm going to start my own company. Okay. And she was like, no, you know, it's very difficult, you know, in 6 months' time. And, you know, at this point in time, I've gotten used to hearing all sorts of, you can't do this, you can't do this. So I was like, fine. It was the morning of the next day after I submitted my resignation that I had a full-blown panic attack. Because I was like,
were you able to tell your colleagues that you put in your resignation letter?
I just put it in and then went, you know, I had resigned. Like, but you have to serve your notice.
Exactly.
But you know, once you send in that letter and then you withdraw it, it puts you in a bad light because
really
it's like you are somebody that can, you know, or you are using a resignation as a ploy to maybe get a promotion, or, you know, so you are using it to manipulate the system. So it doesn't really put you in a good light if you take that move. So you have to be certain. So the next morning, full-blown panic attack. I was like, why did I do it? You know, that was so stupid, you know. But then I was like, look, I've done it. And at this point in time, you know, the bank afforded me a certain lifestyle. So I had moved out of my parents' house. I had my small car that I was managing. And then I was like, hey, I mean, all I had was some small savings, right? So I was like, I must go back home. I must go back home.
Go back to where it started.
I'm telling you, I can't pay this rent. I can't pay rent. You know, I must definitely go back. And my father had internet. I was like, I need internet, you know. Internet. So I moved back home.
How did your parents receive that news, knowing their daughter's in the bank, she's comfortable, she's fine, and the next thing she's home, saying she wants to start her own business?
So my father, I knew would be more understanding, because my father always felt that I was being restricted. And you know, in the bank, I was the only females in both of the banks that I worked in the IT department. Oh. So I'd gone through a lot of discrimination, sexism, stereotyping, and I would tell my dad. So my dad knew my struggle. And so to him, he felt that I could be doing more. So he was excited. He felt, you know, like you can start something. My mother, on the other hand, you know, I knew would be a challenge. But understanding typical African women, so I knew marriage was a big conversation for my mother. She kept asking me when am I going to get married. So I went to her. I said, Ma, you know, as I'm working in the bank, I'm always in front of the computer, working hard. You know, I'm not meeting anybody. But when I stop and I start my own business, I can go and by all means I'll meet somebody. And you know, she was like, when you're going around, maybe
you found your way around her.
You know, so and then she was on board. So I got both parents, and it's very important, you know, in the entrepreneurial journey. You need that support base because it's a roller coaster of many different emotions. So you do need a solid ground. You know, some people that at least spur you on or encourage you. You need to find that center, or else, you know, it can be very challenging. Yeah.
I think one thing I definitely want us to speak on, I mean, you talked about challenges you faced working in departments where it was mainly male. I would like us to speak on that. I'm so sure that you are enjoying this conversation we're having with Regina, CEO of Soronko Solutions, but we have to go on a short break. But before we go on the break, we want to acknowledge our sponsors who are making it possible for us to bring you She Inspires. First, Hotel Kasareri, who provide us the sets, this lovely set for us to bring you She Inspires. Also, Duffy's Health and Beauty. They're into 100% natural skincare products and feminine products. We're also supported by Ajeli Jewelry. If you're looking for a Ghanaian handmade jewelry brand, it is Ajeli Jewelry for you. We're also supported by Mianan Foods. Mianan Foods is a food processing and packaging company. Also, Royal Peaches, thank you for my makeup. Debbie Frimpong, thank you for this elegant dress. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Me broni, na de na wanu me drama na che wa no pe wa nom okọ. Me so ya no pe bia, ansana me ko menwuma so no. Menya de pe bi. Let me share it with you. Duffy's Ohima Feminine Mixture. I am a secret bakopa aboa me. Boso me bia, me menses e bakama, abra menti ya obia. E flow mami. Me wo ye chi no, na me menses no, e ma ye. Me sha ase no Duffy's Ohima Feminine Mixture no. E bankasa with no pain. So Duffy's Ohima Feminine Mixture. The best yes.
Open the Dudwitwa, Duffy's Health and Beauty, Ewo East Legon American House, Kumasenso, Yebeng Tech Hospital, Enye Mapim for Sankratwe, FDA Ashishamwa Jetum say a ye.
Welcome back. This is She Inspires, highlighting inspiring women of our times. Our guest on She Inspires today is the CEO of Soronko Solutions. And talking about starting something for yourself, we left off where so you eventually moved home, you could have dad's internet, you found your way around mom and all. How did you eventually start picking things up to build Soronko Solutions?
So now I started to think, in my journey, I'm always discriminated, and I have like not discriminated, but let's say I have the 5-second shock reaction, right? Because I'm never what anybody expects. Each time somebody would meet me and I would say I'm a developer or I'm a coder, they would be like, are you sure? Or, can you really do it? Let's give you a test, you know? Or somebody would be like, oh, maybe you are playing with Microsoft Word and you think it's coding, you know? So I knew that if I just went around businesses as I am, it would be a challenge, right? I had even been to some companies where I didn't get past reception because when I say I have a proposal for, let's say, your manager or somebody, they'll be like, Madam, our manager is not into those kind of things. And they'll be looking at me like, you know, I'm like, okay. So I knew that I had to be able to change my strategy.
Okay.
And I was also very shy. You know, I was also very shy, you know, and so I was thinking, okay, why don't I do one thing, which is position myself such that opportunity will find me, right? There are two types of people. There are those that are able to go after different opportunity. And then there are those that I consider myself in that clan who are well positioned such that opportunity finds them wherever they are. So I decided to be intentional about creating a brand, right?
Okay.
You know, whereby I would become a thought leader in my space and creating that space. So I went on using social media, which was, you know, free and easy to engage. And I said, okay, Regina, I want to create myself as a thought leader in the tech space, especially the females in tech space, because we were in the minority. And at this time, there was a movement going around, you know, questioning why there were so few women in the tech space. And so I decided that, okay, let me use social media as my tool to position myself. So on all the social media platforms, I had just 3 messaging. I didn't talk anything personal. You wouldn't come to my page and find anything about me as an individual. It was all about my business, or it was women and girls in technology, tech for social business. And then I started to think about what type of business I wanted to do. I always wanted to do social impact work. I was driven by social impact and I wanted to make a change. But I didn't like how NGOs operated because they relied solely on donor funding. And so I was like, okay, I have to have my own for-profit business and then use my profits for my social impact work. So that's when I started Soronko Solutions, which was targeted at small and medium-scale businesses. Now, I want to chip this in because it was part of my decision. Typically, when people think about starting a tech business, their first thing is, I'm going to target big multinationals because, I mean, that's where the money is. Exactly, of course. But as a female, I had to stop and think because I was worried that if that was my first target, those big multinationals, there would reach a point in time where I had worked very hard and it was left with the final signing of the contract. And then the manager would be, meet me at room 304.
Those meet me's. Okay.
Then what do I do? So I never wanted to put myself in a compromising position.
Okay.
So in my decision or deciding my business model, that was a factor. Like maybe for a man, it's like, where can I get profits? But for me as a female, I had to stop and pause and be like, nah, Regina, can I go this far and have to meet these conflicts? Why don't I start with small and medium scale businesses? You know, they are smaller businesses, but I can do a lot. At that point, if you tell me, meet me at 1 I can say no, because I mean, small, I don't have to come and meet you anywhere, right? Yeah. And so this is why I picked small and medium scale businesses. And then later, I found out that there's, a gap in the market, right? There are lots of SMEs looking for tech solutions which are affordable and customized, locally made, because they cannot go and buy an ERP or an SAS, you know, all these advanced. So then that was my market.
You found the gap.
I found my market. That was my market. So I said, okay, let me start building custom software for all these, you know, small businesses. And then I started off like that, and it was mostly referrals, right? I would do work for somebody, and then, you know, somebody would refer me.
Why do you think you benefited so much from referrals from your work?
Because I did good work.
You did good work.
You know, the other challenge that we have in the market, especially for developers, is, people in this market don't really understand the value of an intangible, like a service, right? If you're building software for somebody, it's not like, let's say if I'm selling this vase, I can say, oh, this is glass from Italy, this is this, but when you're selling, your skill, your knowledge base, and you are pricing it to an individual, the person will be like, okay, I want you to build this software for me. Then you mention a price, the person will be like, hey. And I used to get, oh, you this small girl, you this small girl, what are you going to use this money for, and people don't even want to pay. And if the software is user-friendly, hey, they don't want to pay. But like, oh, I just pressed this and it worked. And you say how much, it's
this small thing
this small thing that I just press this button, but they don't understand, how the complex code that goes into it to make it very user-friendly. To make it efficient, to make it run a certain way. And so it was difficult to be able to price in this market for them to understand the value. And we've come a long way. I'm talking about back in the early 2000s where the market didn't really understand and appreciate technology. And so I really had to think about, how I was going to come up with pricing and packaging and all of that, and even how to make sure that I collected my money. Because most of the time, what would happen is that after a client had made an initial deposit and then you had completed the work, to get the remaining money, come tomorrow. I'm not in the office. I've gone here. I've traveled. You'll be chasing that person forever, right?
What solution did you get for that problem too? Challenge.
That challenge. So I had two solutions. First, I took 70% upfront.
Okay.
Right? And then I would sell you on the value in my portfolio because I was good at, building software. So I would sell you on the value in my portfolio. And second, I put in certain codes that after a period, if you hadn't settled, the software would not work.
You are one smart woman. Regina. One smart woman. So then they would have no choice than to come back to you.
So because I was like, and I think for me, I had to think about all these ways. Also because, I was a minority in a male-dominated space, right? Because, how am I going to be coming to office every day to be chasing you, right? I can't do that.
Some coding to do.
Exactly.
So eventually you would say it took you about how long to finally put all those measures in place for your company to really stand strong and follow through with the structures and processes?
I would say it took me 2 years.
2 years, okay.
The first year also, I struggled with the art of negotiation. This is also because of a cultural precedent. Because, as women, a good girl does not ask for more. If your mother gives you 2 loaves of bread, how dare you be like, Mommy, can you give me 3? You just take the 2. Exactly, the boys ask for more. You just take the 2, you smile and appreciate your mother. So I hadn't learned how to negotiate. When I went into the space, and I would meet a bigger client and they would put up a number, I was just grateful to get the job. That I didn't even know how to counter that number. So I remember after one of my dealings, the client was like, this was the worst negotiation. Do you know how much people charge to build this type of software? And you are just giving out for peanuts. And I had to go back and be like, Regina, you have to work on how to negotiate. So I had to learn how to negotiate, how to speak up. And also that's the other thing. We aren't always trained as to how to speak up. So if a woman is uncomfortable, she smiles and doesn't say anything.
Keep it to ourselves.
It's like,
said and done. Exactly. Do you know what I was going through at that time?
So in the moment, it's hard for you to, because we are also socialized to be likable and agreeable, right? So if you don't like something, you don't speak up. You just smile and maybe you shift uncomfortably. If you feel that you are being treated unfairly, it's afterwards that you will complain to somebody. But in the moment, you take it. Right. So I had to learn now how to find my voice because now I was going to be in a space where the number of zeros was always going to be less. As soon as I walked in, I know that the zero has dropped. Once you see me, if you were planning to spend 10,000, as soon as you see me, you bring it down.
You bring it down.
So I knew that I was up against that all the time and that I had to come in extra confident. I had to come in being able to deliver. I had to come in assertive.
Okay.
But at a certain point, because also if I raise my voice past a certain tone with older men, is disrespectful.
So there had to be a balance.
There had to be a
I had
balance.
to strike that balance.
You know, I had to learn how to be assertive, but not too much.
Particularly in our culture.
Exactly, because most of the time I'm meeting senior men. And so as soon as I'm like, maybe passionate about what I'm selling and what I have to offer, and then my voice goes up small because, you know, it's like I really...
Check yourself.
Check myself.
So, Jen, one thing I know you're so glad about is having come to a position now where you impact digital policy for children. And what are some of these policies and how has it actually impacted the lives of children?
So, I mean, for that engagement is to make sure that when children are able to go online, that they are safe, you know, they are able to learn the right skills, and that it's a space that is being policed. So for that engagement, it was very important that we understood. And when it comes to policy advice, it's important to understand what is happening on the ground. You know, what are some of the trends, the use cases. So I was very privileged to be in that position to share some of our learnings from the work that we've been doing, you know, with skills development in the digital space for children, especially, you know, young girls who are one of the most vulnerable groups once they go online. Another policy direction that I'm key on engaging with is making sure that the cost of internet is affordable, because that's also another challenge for women and girls. So I support the Alliance for Affordable Internet by also contributing my perspectives on the best practice and being the voice of gender, you know, in those conversations. I also helped with the social enterprise policy. So I'm really keen on making sure that, you know, we are able to leverage the learnings and the insights from our work to be able to shape policy direction, to be able to give best practices, and to be able to make sure that we are creating an enabling environment so that the impact that we are seeing can scale and grow.
How's a day in your life like, Regina?
So a day in my life now, I'm a mother and a wife.
Oh, you have how many children?
I have one daughter.
One
She
daughter.
is at the independent stage of 5, going to 5, so everything I can do it by myself.
Oh.
So it involves getting her to school in the morning, which now is a struggle because she wants to do everything by herself, and you know she's not doing it well. And then I get into work early mornings. I have to do emails, a lot of them, depending. I have some partner calls, speaker engagements, you know, and now I don't do a lot of coding. So now it's more of strategy and making sure that things are run well. And then I close, you know, around 5, spend some time with my daughter, and then go back on the computer. And then I sleep, wake up,
and
do
it
it
begins
all
again.
Yeah.
Your organization, Tech Needs Girls, I mean, you're reaching out to girls in undeserved communities, teaching them coding. I'm thinking of all these girls, is there one impact story or memorable one that just hits you and makes you want to keep going at what you do? All these girls you met in these communities.
There are several.
Is there one you can share with us?
You know, there are so many, but I'm going to share one,
Okay.
which just like, you know, is coming to my mind. So I just want to say, like with Tech Needs Girls, we've evolved now to Soronko Academy. We've done over 20,000. Yes, we've done over 20,000 women and girls in all the regions in Ghana and expanded to Burkina Faso. There are several. And, you know, what we do also is we connect the women to job opportunities. So now there are like 91 women that do remote work and they earn 300 euros a month, you know, just sitting, doing microtasking, artificial intelligence for a French company.
Wow.
We have a lady, actually this is even just a recent one. She sent us a video. She did a digital marketing course and she started a business in Teshiman where she gets foodstuffs and she uses social media to be able to put out the word about her business. She's created a little website and then she exports locally, right? So if you need groceries, you know, you just reach out to her business and then she'll send you groceries. We have another lady who built an advertising platform for small and medium scale businesses so that they have a platform to advertise. We have another lady who set up a legal aid, so an online platform to inform women about their legal rights. And the last one is Alicia. She is 12 years old. She learned mobile app development. She built a game and built an app that helps her brother with his math homework. So, I mean, the stories.
It's nice to see your face light up as you talk about these girls and women. How do you feel when you see how their lives have been impacted by learning? I mean, getting into Soronko Academy.
It makes every day worthwhile, right? It makes every day worthwhile. I mean, the work that we do helps me sleep, sleep well at night, because we're able to impact so many women and girls. And now we've expanded to even work with children with disabilities, you know, so we work with children with hearing and visual impairments and autistic children. So it really lifts my spirit and gives me hope, you know, for the next generation. And I'm glad that I can just play a part. I can just play my part to continue on that legacy of helping young Africans solve their own problems.
Wow. I am so inspired having you sit here with me and share your life with us. And it's so encouraging to hear how these women's lives have been changed by the work that you're also doing. It's a lot you're doing. I think it's so much. Do you ever have time to, you know, just cool off and be Regina, just you? What kind of some of the things you do to, you know, just relax? And cool off, yeah.
To be honest, you know, to be honest, relaxation now it's somewhat of a challenge. It's personal time because I juggle between mother and CEO. Those are my two jobs, right? And I wanted to be present in my daughter's life, right? I didn't want her to just watch me on TV, you know, so I dedicate weekends to her. So on weekends, you'll find me at the playground or, you know, playing some type of game, especially since I haven't given her a sibling. So she's like using me well in the house.
Is she pressing you for one?
She is. She is. She's always asking me for a brother or sister. And then I have to play with her. She wakes up at 6 during the weekend, but can't wake up during school days, you know. So, and then there is, you know, being a CEO. So, and that I think is also the challenge, you know. I have to figure out the balance for self, right? And I'm struggling sometimes. I don't normally pause and just reflect and say, Regina, as an individual, what is it that you used to like to do? I don't remember, you know? So it is one of my personal struggles to be able to put myself first sometimes. And I think I always put others before self, you know? So I'm learning that. I'm still on the road.
You're still working on it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your faith. I mean, it was fascinating knowing, taking us back to the banking period where you went to the washroom, you prayed about this decision you were about to take. How would you say your faith has helped you navigate through this period? I mean, having to go through some discriminatory experiences. I mean, being a woman in a certain department, hearing so many no's that you can't do this, you can't do that. How would you say your faith has played out in all of your life so far?
So I don't think my journey would have been what it is without my belief in God and God like opening doors for me, because it has been quite, you know, an interesting journey whereby I have now been able to create both a local and international presence. I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet with presidents.
You've won so many awards.
Yes.
So many.
So many different things. And I'm going to give you an interesting example that just happened, which I can only chance to my faith and, you know, the power of God in my life. And the fact that, so there were 3 things. The first one is, you know, when Bishop T.D. Jakes came to Ghana, my mother-in-law, and I'm also, you know, a fan of Bishop T.D. Jakes because I used to listen to his preaching on Women Thou Art Loose, you know. I mean, those were powerful sessions. And my mother-in-law says, you know, she would love to go to the stadium, you know, to hear him preach. And I was like, everything I'm doing, I'm still shy, you know, in a way. So I still don't like large crowds, right? And so I was like, nah, I can't go to stadium. I'm not the stadium kind. And I was like, oh, but it would have been lovely to hear him preach, him coming to Ghana. But then I was like, okay. So I'm there, crying, phone rings. Hello, I'm calling from Bishop T.D. Jakes' camp. He would like to interview me.
Your mother-in-law wanted you to go along with her to listen to Bishop T.D. Jakes.
At the
You
stadium.
didn't like huge crowds, so you were hesitant.
I said no.
Then you get a call
Out
from
of
his
the blue,
office.
From his office. That Bishop T.D. Jakes would like to, not even like, you know, maybe there's a special session and like they are inviting people and I'm invited to just meet him or something. He would like to interview me.
How did you feel about that? Did you scream or something? How did you feel?
At first, I didn't believe it naturally because I was like, these 419s can't. You know, they've come again. Bishop T.D. Jakes, how is he going to find? You know, so my initial reaction in my mind was like, this can't. But then, you know, as he went on, I realized, oh my goodness, this is real, right? This is actually going to happen. And I mean, I got to meet him and we had an interview, and I know from the bottom of my heart, like it went past just a conversation, right? You know, he ministered to my spirit and he asked me, he said, do you believe that God called you to do this work? And I have no doubt in my spirit that he did, right? And I mean, how he heard about me is it's just out there. It's just out there, right? So God shows himself every time, because I was published in the CEO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg's book. Somebody in his team was reading that book that his wife gave him to read. Read about me. As they were coming to Ghana, he was like, oh, you know, I read this story, would like to connect. And then reached out to somebody who reached out to somebody and got my number. And that's how I connected. You know, so this was one other thing. The second thing is, you know, I passed by a billboard of Vlisco, right, in Osu, because my parents live in Osu. And I was always thinking, oh my gosh, it would be so lovely to get like Vlisco fabric, you know, I would love it. And I get an email. We would like, and you know, before Vlisco used to put out a vote to get like brand ambassadors, and then they would vote. And I always used to think, you know, I'm known mostly in the tech space, in the space that are mostly men, you know. So I get this email that I've been selected to be the brand ambassador. And it was so interesting because as I would pass the billboard, I would minister in my spirit that I would love, you know. I mean, who wouldn't like to get to be part of this great brand? And then it happened. And then this last one happened last week. I was sitting there minding my business. I get an email from an initiative that is housed at the World Bank. So they have an initiative called Wi-Fi where they allocate $350 million to women entrepreneurs across the African continent. And its donor communities made up of 14 countries. And I was nominated by representatives from the German government to be an observer on the governing committee to give best practices.
Wow. This is big.
You know, Jennifer, I'm like...
How easy to when we're reading that email? You know? This is big.
I was like...
This is big.
This is just unbelievable, right? I'm going to not only be able to share best practices to influence how African women entrepreneurs get funding, which is a big gap in the space, right? Which influences economic empowerment for women, which is something I'm very, very passionate about. But, you know, I'm here in Ghana and I can contribute on that level, right? Yeah. And I have no idea, right? Who from the German government, right? I'm thinking to myself, how did this happen? It can only be God. Yeah. So God shows himself through and through every day. Like I just put one foot and then he does the rest.
Yeah. Regina, can you, and you've shared so much today, for someone who's had to start a business from scratch, had to learn to find a voice, had to learn to negotiate and all, what would you say are your top 3 lessons you can share with anyone listening or watching us today?
So my lessons are simple. Even though you're afraid, keep going. Okay. Don't give up. And then the last one is, you know, it doesn't matter what happens. What matters is what you do.
Wow. This has been one inspiring session with Regina. I guess I could go on and on with her, but our time is up and we've got to go. I guess I could go on with 2 hours for her and not even realize. But thank you all so much for joining us on She Inspires. We've been with the CEO of Soronko Solutions, Regina Honu. She also runs a Soronko Academy that's impacting the lives of women. And I want to say thank you for making the time to be with us on She Inspires. God bless you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you all for joining us on She Inspires today. Our guest has been Regina Honu, CEO of Soronko Solutions, making impact and technology in our space here in Ghana and beyond. And I trust that there have been some lessons here and there that you've picked up and you've been inspired by our time with her. Be sure to catch She Inspires again next week, same time. My name is Jennifer Jessica Danquah.
She Inspires.